Twister Talk with Gary, Sue, and Brandon starts now.
Tornado's crossing the road right in front of us. It's tearing something apart right now. Big time flash. Shoot, I think a semi got flipped. Go. Are you okay? This is great. David, big rail cover. We gotta go, sir. Hang in the car.
I hate Oklahoma.
Well, you know, it's Twister Talk. I'm Gary.
I'm Sue.
I'm Brandon.
And we're back again with mirth and frivolity.
Really?
Yeah, we're talking about tragic floods and everything.
Yeah,
and
that's
yuck it up while we're
hilarious,
doing it.
huh?
Really. It's, hang on, let me give it.
Okay.
Am I there? Can you hear me, Mom? Okay.
I can hear you perfectly.
All right, there. Anyway. Hey, boy, I tell you, it must be the ears go first.
Well, if it's not Twister Talk, if there isn't some kind of technical screw up.
That's true. It's not
And
Twister.
we wouldn't want to disappoint our 22 and a half fans.
Yeah, that's right. All four of you listen every week, so we don't want to let guys to walk away. So
Ooh,
without
boy.
a major equipment malfunction, this wouldn't be Twister Talk.
That's right.
And don't forget it. Anyway, things that people will not forget this past week. It's been a wild weekend.
It's been kind of
into
crazy.
this week, all over the country, but especially in the upper Midwest, which has been kind of like out of the news for the most part for a while now with nothing going on. Suddenly they said, we want to be noticed. So they have been. And we've had incredible severe weather, basically century-type floods up there with from what I've been reading and talking to a friend of mine last night. We'll get into that in a moment. She shared with me what she saw up in that area, so it's pretty incredible. But even tonight, before we roll and everything, even tonight, we've got severe weather happening across the eastern part of the U.S. More on tap for tomorrow. We'll talk about that at the end of the show because it looks like it's going to be reloading in places that don't need it to be reloaded in. So, but anyway, looking at everything over the last few days, it's been crazy with tornado warnings, flooding, large hail, all the way in the Midwest, and already contending with heat and humidity and record-breaking temperatures. So, of course, they get flooding rains afterwards.
Of course.
Anyway,
it's inevitable, right?
So, let's, Brandon, I think we'll let you go first and give us a feeling on what's happening and what you have information-wise about the severe weather up there.
All right. Well, let's see here. We definitely have been seeing some interesting activity here. Mm-hmm. Like Gary said, we have seen tornado warnings, flash flooding, large hail. Of course, this only just kind of adds insult to injury because this is a part of the country that has also been dealing with severe heat, humidity, now, of course, intense flooding after several days of rain. And just to give you an idea, we're talking about a pretty vast swath of the country here,
Right.
Basically from eastern Nebraska and South Dakota through Iowa and Minnesota. So that's a pretty good area of the Central Plains, Northern Plains, and Upper Midwest.
Right.
And we are seeing areas getting up to 18, that's 1/8 inches of rain over the course of a few days.
Right.
Now, Gary, you and I talked about this a little bit earlier today and even last night as we were discussing our show for today.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of these are areas that over the course of a summer normally get 4, 6, maybe 8 inches of rain.
Right.
And that's over the course of, 3 months.
Mm-hmm.
That's 2-3 times what they would normally get
Right.
over a much longer period of time. So just to put that in perspective of what they're dealing with, areas that have been hit by a flood, they're already vulnerable now.
Right.
And now on top of that, you have to deal with heat because a lot of places may be out of power. So what we've got here is, and unfortunately, we do have, looks like a report within this area of at least a couple of people may have died after driving into flooded areas here.
Right.
So
Right. The big impact, Sue, unfortunately, has also been crops. I mean, there are literally tens of thousands of acres underwater. And that's going to basically, a lot of people's crops they planted for their livelihood and to feed people basically may be wiped out by this kind of floods and events.
It's very possible because at this point in time, it's going to be dubious to have time to replant anything,
Yeah.
especially because the fields are going to be really wet for some time.
Yeah, and not talking about 3 or 4 days. This is it may take several weeks for that to all dry
'cause
out.
so some of these guys may be looking at a total loss.
And Sue, there's also been concerns about there's some of the dams up in that area have been
Yeah,
causing
the
a problem.
dams. It's like, dudes, what?
Yeah,
I think the most notable one is the Rapidan Dam, which is on the Blue Earth River in Minnesota. It's been having some real problems. It's held up so far, but water has actually surged around it
yes.
and destroyed a home that was sitting there. It was scenic the week before. Now it's not there. There was certainly a lot of talk about it being in imminent danger of failure. It did not, but I guess at this point the real question has to be, well, it didn't fail this time, but what's going to happen if they get another rainstorm like this?
That's really the big question, because the possibility of more heavy rains will be existent into next week or even in the weekend here. So again, places that really can't take any more rain at all could wind up getting several more inches over the weekend. But any rain at all could cause
It's
catastrophic.
really quite
catastrophic
scary.
feeling,
The
yes.
water levels peaked. Actually, this isn't the water level. The water amounts passing the dam peaked at 34,800 cubic feet per second, which is pretty astonishing.
That's
and
incredible.
It didn't help that the dam spillways were clogged by debris. That's part of what led to the one side of the dam being kind of undercut and letting water through, which destroyed that house that I mentioned.
Right, and so many other places are still in danger with that. There are places underwater.
Yeah.
Sioux Falls, South Dakota has received 6.33 inches of rain in 72 hours from June 20th to the 22nd. That leaves almost 11 inches of rain in Sioux Falls in June. Places having 5, 6, 7, 8 metropolitan areas, 5, 6, 7, 8 inches of rain over a 3 to 4 day period.
Yeah, and most of those towns, they're not really plumbed to drain that much water that fast because
No.
they don't get rain like that normally.
No, they don't, and so that's another big concern. In Brandon, parts of Interstate 29, which is a major north-south for interstate through those areas, some of it's been closed due to flooding.
Mm-hmm.
So we've got that going on too.
Yeah, and interestingly, speaking of dams and rivers, there have been a number of reports of what are usually very small, very quiet little tributary streams in these areas suddenly, becoming a raging torrent after they get hit with and have to try to absorb all of this rain over such a wide area. For example, Monona County, which is right on the Nebraska border there, mentioned that the Little Sioux River breached levees in a number of areas. And Woodbury County, right next door, posted a video on their Facebook page showing some drone footage of the river overflowing the levees and then flooding some land in rural Smithland.
Right.
No injuries, thankfully, but one particular emergency management coordinator for Monona County, Patrick Prorock, described having to drive through small towns at 4 a.m., waking people up to encourage them to evacuate.
Oh, my.
Yeah. Very, very frightening. You imagine being woken up at 3 o'clock in the morning. It's like, get your stuff and flee, because we can't guarantee that this is not going to be underwater in 24 hours. And so that's been a real issue. I know, Sue, you've been looking at some of that too. Just an amazing situation.
Yeah, I think one of the statistics I find most interesting is that at its peak, more water flowed through the Rock River near Rock Valley than flowed through the Mississippi River near Clinton, which is astonishing.
Yeah.
When you consider that the Rock River is a good size, but it's not like the Mississippi.
No.
And of course, this flooding will steadily move downstream, and I would imagine it probably will affect some places on the Mississippi.
Well, it'll flow into the Missouri River in some places first, and flow into
then on into the
Mississippi, then on
Mississippi, yeah.
south. So they are expecting now. They are expecting high waters even as far south as St. Louis over the next, maybe it'll be maybe a week or so. But they said there could be high water concerns along the Mississippi as all this water moves toward the Gulf of Mexico. So it's going to be
it's pretty
we'll have to see
impressive.
how bad it's going to get,
Yeah.
but it's going to be it's going to be something to keep an eye on, because just because you don't get affected where you're at right now, but if you live downriver, you kind of need to be ready, because the water is heading your way.
Absolutely. And, I might add that my friends in the Royal Air Force want everybody to know they had nothing to do with that dam being damaged.
Okay. That's right. Explain why.
Because they're very good at breaking dams.
That's right. And so that's a World War II reference, folks.
That's pretty obscure, folks. Sorry.
So we dug that one out.
I've just done a bunch of research on it.
But here's something interesting. Officials with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers and the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission were on site Tuesday of this week evaluating the dam and ongoing risk. And it talks about, was the dam already in disrepair? Well, here's some background information.
I've heard that, yes, it was.
Yes. Construction of the Rapidan Dam was finished in 1910 and described by the county as a hollow concrete dam founded on sandstone bedrock in a steep U-shaped valley. The dam is approximately 475 feet long, 87 feet high. A 2019 investigation into dams across the country found that the Rapidan Dam was in fair condition and there would likely be a loss of property if it failed. But that same year, the dam experienced one of the highest floods on record. Severe weather from that flood and other rainfall since has caused significant damage to the dam's structure and usability. According to one Blue Earth County official, the dam is in a state of disrepair. And here's one of the reasons why. After the 2019 flood, ice jams formed in a narrow bend of the river downstream of the dam through January through March of 2020. These jams continue to build and cause water to rise and flood. A 2021 study found the buildup caused further damage, and an April 2023 assessment conducted by the National Inventory of Dams found Rapidan to be in poor condition. Officials have not said whether the issue identified in past assessments led to the partial failure. Others have said yes, it did have a play in that. The structural integrity of the dam has been in question for a long time. The removal of the dam has been a question that's been up there. So what's going to happen? Well, if the dam fails, it will have to be rebuilt. But unfortunately, if the dam fails, a lot of property and lives could be lost with that.
Yeah.
But that dam is going to have to be replaced now because of what's happening in the last few months.
Yeah, money spent on infrastructure is really important.
They really need to get that taken care of. And that, we've heard this other parts of the country where, for whatever reason, things are not taken care of than they should be. We don't seem to be able to learn that lesson. I will leave it at that for now, let you make your own thoughts. But things need to fix up. You cannot let these infrastructures, we've heard of roads collapsing, we've heard of things being washed out.
That bridge in Minneapolis.
Yeah, all this stuff happening because it's not being taken care of. That has to become a priority. Anyway, so that's what's been happening up there. Now, there were also some flooding concerns in Iowa and severe weather there. Some places, Omaha, Nebraska, outside of Omaha, a wind gust of 90 miles an hour.
That's impressive.
There were some severe storms, some tornadoes, not a lot, but there's still several tornadoes. There was one even this afternoon reported near Cedar Rapids, Iowa.
Yeah.
And again, the big concern is this is going to reload over the weekend.
Well, not to mention there were several borderline derecho events that
true.
have gone on. And in fact, I have a very interesting quote
all right.
from a friend of mine who lives in Appleton, Wisconsin, who described the storm that went through, let's see, this would have been Monday the 20, I don't know, Monday. It went through Monday.
That'd be the 24th.
The 24th, June 24th, thank you. She described it as the weirdest storm I've ever seen, and I questioned her in what way. And she replied that it was intense, but it was all happening in the sky. Only a couple lightning strikes came down. You could see massive lightning and the wind howling, but it was all above.
That's incredible.
Yeah, that must have been a very weird experience. A number of her friends who live in that area also commented about it. They didn't hear much thunder, but the lightning was just continuous.
Not really. I mean, there obviously there's things that come together in physics that cause it to happen, but rarely I've heard of a storm that basically stays airborne.
That's what sounds like happened here, at least in that area.
So it might have been working. Now, it might have been a downburst or something later on, but it was working in that direction. It's very strange. But again, this kind of weather can breed very strange occurrences. A friend of mine from high school, she now lives in Minnesota, and Lori, say hi. Say hi. Okay. Lori, I talked to Lori last night, and she gave me some updates on her area. The severest weather missed her for the most part in regards to the flooding rains were more to the north and northeast than where she lived. She lives in southwestern Minnesota, so it wasn't as bad, but she said that the severe weather, though, there was still very incredible. Lots of thunder and lightning, strong winds in her area. She sent a couple of pictures which we'll post. Two huge supercells basically just north of her property. So it's like
Wow.
she was watching this. Garrett is very, very eerie because she said it got really, really quiet.
Yeah, that's never good.
And then the storms broke
No,
loose.
it isn't.
And so that's what she was talking about. But I said, well, I'm glad you're okay. She goes, yeah. She goes, there were friends to the northeast of her that got hit pretty hard with
Oh, boy.
severe weather and flooding rains and damages to their homes and everything. But she said that what I'm worried about, she had said, well, Gary's going to reload. I said, yes, Laura, I got bad news for you. It's not done. So that's the things happening. And Brandon, the truth is, it's going to reload again tomorrow. Starting again in the high plains, we're looking at an enhanced risk of severe weather. Basically, it looks like another major wind event and hail event. But Brandon, it looks like a pattern setting up where the same places are going to get pummeled every couple of days now for the next week or so. And between the pummeling, you're going to get incredible heat.
Yeah, so what we're looking at here is the setup of a situation here that's going to leave these areas, some of which are already vulnerable, are going to get potentially hit repeatedly and cause even further damage here. So, yeah, we're dealing with not just the proverbial 1-2 punch, but maybe a 1-2-3.
Yeah.
We've got a heat wave that's built in. We've got this pattern of heavy rain and wind events that looks like it's going to be settling into the area for the next week or so. And on top of that, we have the damage that's already been done.
Right.
I do have some concerns about, you mentioned all the crops that are grown in this part of the country.
Right.
This is a big part of the breadbasket. This
Yes,
is
it
where
is.
a lot of our food crops come from. And we're seeing large areas that, like you said, Gary, could be a loss for the year.
Yeah, that's a big concern, Sue, that this could be an impact that will affect our pocketbooks come fall.
Well, yeah, beef is already expensive, but
Yes,
the thing is, if you have massive losses to corn crops, it's going to be much more expensive to feed those cattle.
Yeah, it's going to be has a domino effect of you get these flooding rains and these severe weather and these heat waves, and it just kind of dominoes through the food, the agricultural area, and the food for all of us. So everybody's affected. Again, it's just going to be a wild week. I will tell you this. People say, well, usually when you get this kind of event, it will cool down. Well, if you remember the derecho that swept through the Ohio Valley in 2012, it didn't get cool after the derecho went through. It got blistering hot. And that's what we're seeing set up here. You're having these major storm systems go rolling through, and they're not cooling things down, or may only cool them down for 24 hours, and the heat is back on. That seems to be the pattern going into July. One good caveat, the Atlantic is quiet and should stay quiet.
Well, actually, there are a couple of tropical disturbances heading
Right.
towards Florida right now.
They're keeping an eye on
that
one.
they're watching, yeah.
Less than a 40% chance of development. So hopefully, maybe we'll get lucky, and they'll just be
That would be
quiet.
good.
They'll be quiet for a while
Yeah.
because they had flooding rains in Mexico that they're still cleaning up from, and the flooding rains in
From
South
Alberto,
Texas.
yeah.
From Alberto. It's just been a mess. But again, guys, as we wrap this up, I just get this feeling it's going to be a very active summer.
It has been so far.
And not one we're going to enjoy going through.
No.
So, any closing thoughts, my friend?
Well, like we've pointed out here, there's just a couple of things I'm going to go over here. We have, we've mentioned this heat that's been building into these areas. We have this heat dome effect that seems to be setting itself up. Not just we've been talking, of course, about the upper Midwest, but
Right.
this is also happening in the south central and even southwestern U.S.
Yes, it is.
We're going to see temperatures in the next week or two being pushed to 10 to 15 degrees above average. And this is going to go from the west and areas into the southeast. So high temperatures in the upper 90s, even low hundreds. We'll be expecting to see some fairly high heat indices and probably probably going to break a record or two here and there for daytime heat. So
Right. Checking even yesterday evening, checking in places in the Southwest, checking the Houston area. The high yesterday was 98, but the heat index in the middle of the afternoon was 117.
Oh man.
The humidity was 75%, or the dew point was 75%. That's incredible, and of course there are rolling blackouts who parts of the Southeast, not only due to severe weather but power grids being overloaded. So it's a mess, and it looks like it's going to be a mess again. I know you're just sounding the same alarm over and over again. Well, take this to the bank, folks. It's going to be a long, hot, wet summer. And then some places will probably stay hot and dry out. No one knows what's going to happen next, but I get the feeling it's not going to be pleasant for a long group of people in the country. Just be smart. Always have water, and for God's sake, stay hydrated. I hear more people. You check news. All these people were dehydrated. Well, drink water. It won't hurt you. I guarantee you, the water will not hurt you. You'll be all right if you drink water.
H2O is not poisonous.
No, it's not poisonous. So anyway.
In fact, just the opposite. It's quite good for you.
It is indeed.
Go. There you go. See, you've learned something from us.
Tornadoes.
So that's it. You heard the tornadoes being warned. Tornadoes are coming. Anyway, for this edition of Twister Talk, I'm Gary.
I'm Sue.
And I'm Brandon.
All right, stay safe, stay dry, and take that air conditioner to your back. It'll keep you cool.